Good afternoon, I am Precious Mzea Sakaleji. Welcome to Camnet TV Midday News. The headlines. PF scoops Lukasha and Mwansabombe parliamentary by-elections. Zamto drags 22-year-old for vandalizing cables worth 145 kwacha. In international news, human rights abuses persist in Burundi despite new government, UN. We'll take a break. We'll be back with the details after this. Msika is here. We have you all covered with just 150 kwacha. You can advertise every day from 17 hours to 18 hours. For a 30-second ad, get the benefit of selling your products and services on Msika. For more details, call our marketing department on +260 953 995099 +260 962 444-726 or +260 971 177 467. Email us on info@camnettvafrica.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you a filmmaker? Well, you are exactly what we're looking for.
Camnet TV is calling on local filmmakers. For more details,
you can visit our headquarters in Ibex Hill, next to Hilltop Hospital.
Contact us on
0962 444 726. Camnet TV.
Not just another channel. And other news in detail. The Patriotic Front candidates in the just-ended parliamentary by-elections have scooped the seat with a landslide victory in both constituencies. Mwansabombe, newly elected MP Kapampi Kabaso, poured 6,478, followed by United Party for National Development candidate Maluba Sande, who poured 1,522, followed by Narib polling 400. Leadership Movement had 285, while UPPZ had 129 votes. Meanwhile, Lukasha's George Chisanga managed to poll 13,431, followed by UPND candidate Davis Mlenga, who polled 2,684. PAC had 474, UPPZ had 447, while LM had 143 and MMD 114. Camnet TV will give you a complete results on the main news at 19:30 and the other 12 by-elections. A 22-year-old man of Lusaka has been dragged to court for vandalizing a Zamto cable valued at 145 kwacha. This is in a matter in which Stephen Nyirenda is charged with one count of vandalism, contrary to Section 341D2H of the Vandalism Act number 17 of 2017 of the laws of Zambia. Allegations are that on the 30th of July 2020 at Lusaka, the accused willfully and unlawfully did vandalize a cable of 100 pair ganged by 1.5 meters, which is used for provisions of voice data services valued at 145 kwacha per meter, the property of Zamto Limited, a public company. The accused has accepted to appear before court magistrate Mwaka Mikalile on Monday for plea. In other news, the Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit DMMU, in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture, will ensure that all families affected by the red locust infestation are helped. DMMU National Coordinator Chanda Kabwe has disclosed that Mwandi, Mongu, Lukuku, Kalabo, Sinkongo, Sesheke in Western Province and Kazungula District in Southern Province are some of the affected districts. Mr. Kabwe has further disclosed that on Monday they will start the mapping exercise to ascertain the extent of damage, starting with Mwandi district, which is the most affected. More in the following report.
Reported red locust in Western Province and Southern Province, and government through the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Defense, DMMU, and the International Red Locust of Indola will be on the ground on Monday to assess the extent of the damage by the red locust. Until the mapping is done, that's the time government will be able to respond to ensure that the communities are protected from the red locust. A few months ago, we had red locust again within Western Province and Southern Province. That was Kazungula, and we did the aerial spray. Government working with cooperating partners will make resources available for international red locust to ensure that they're able to protect our next farming season from the red locust. So the Ministry of Agriculture has engaged cooperating partners, and cooperating partners have shown willingness to support government through the fight of the red locust. Government understands the effects of the red locust, and this is why the swift action to ensure that we contain them before they spray all over the provinces, because His Excellency the President is emphasizing on agriculture, and agriculture is our mainstay of our economy now. We are diverting our economy from depending on copper to agriculture. So anything that threatens the agriculture sector threatens the food security of the nation and threatens the growth of our economy. Aware that in the last 2-3 years or so, the agriculture sector has been affected by climate change. We are coming from the droughts, then we had the floods, we had part of the armyworms, now we have the red locust. So government is doing everything possible to ensure that we protect the communities. On Monday, expect a team of experts to be in Western Province to check the extent, and so that the recommendations are done to government on what we are going to do. So this is an assurance to all the affected communities.
The struggle for job hunts has continued to take center stage in Zambia, especially among the youths. Zambia has a significant percentage of unemployment levels, leading to some youths waiting up for job opportunities whenever they see some construction works going on. Due to the ballooning statistics of unemployment, some Lusaka residents are now blaming each other for failing to acquire jobs at an Chinese company in Mandevu area. They have accused the company human resource personnel, who is a Zambian national, of being selective when giving job opportunities. They have disclosed that the management is Sinohydro located in Mandevu told them that they will employ everyone as they were enough jobs.
Sekule makampani ngene nchito but ma Chinese angene sama blacki but ma black seka futa tile tako soma tisacho sakuti tiselenza so ma black saichi ya ma Chinese are good so mfunika boma yanganepo aitika lungu yanganepo mazo ma minister abantu baruma na za ukawala ma Chinese acha light acha bright but ma black seka manje tifuna ni mwana wa marume kapelani msenga wa banda kanani pili kapelani mtonga ndiye wesi afuna mtonga mzao aitana nachoka kumazabuka kubwera kuno. It's not good. Ni banda naitana isebene zuru kubwera kuno tikangene chiro choka ku Eastern. Kuja tisi azina kazi kuno manje ti arrange tikwatira futi kuno. Kandrama kangono kantipereka kuja. Kuno kulipewa ndana afuna nchito.
Tandizire nkonti tifuna tingene nche. Tina ma families ne penili pani na bana batatu. Manje neneka pano bana batatu. Manje watimu aba bonse huko. Because singa kambe neneka ne mafuta na neneka. Ne mafuta mena nayo ne pani ya mbili ni matraki na matraki. Manje aba bonse abantu bali hapa bonse mavuto ali hapa ni angati
6 months
titanze nchito tipeze kwa nchito so far nachukera kukafio kupoka nchito kuno nilipe kwa gona nishitapa meno kwa fipira nikugona nipa polisi nikugona ni muintercity.
Getting into our international news, human rights abuses including rape, murder and targeting of the country's youth persist in Burundi despite a change of government, a new United Nations report has revealed. The report released on Thursday looks at the period proceedings and following the May election of retired General Evariste Ndayishimiye, a member of the governing party who came to power after the 15-year rule of Pierre Nkurunziza. Nkurunziza, who became president in 1995 after the country's 12-year civil war, was elected for a third term in 2015 in a poll allegedly boycotted by the opposition. At least 1,200 people were killed and more than 400,000 displaced during the ensuing unrest between April 2015 and May 2017, according to the UN. Al Jazeera's Alex O'Brien reports.
When President Evariste Ndayishimiye was sworn in June, He vowed to ensure national unity, peace and social justice. But UN investigators say that's not happening, dashing hopes of change under a new government.
What is really striking is that he has appointed to high positions in his cabinet 3 people who are under sanction from the EU and or the US for their alleged participation in human rights violations since 2015. It's a strange act for someone who's keen on reconciliation.
The opposition says Ndayishimye's election victory in May was rigged. The ruling party candidate had the backing of his predecessor and longtime friend Pierre Nkurunziza. UN investigators have highlighted abuses linked to the election, accusing security forces and the ruling party's youth wing of kidnappings, beatings and sexual violence.
One of the findings that was particularly troubling was how these violations were aimed at preventing the main opposition party from carrying out their activities and effectively taking part in these elections.
The UN investigators weren't allowed into Burundi. Ndayishimiye inherited a country isolated under international sanctions and cut off from foreign donors. The latest crisis began in 2015, when then President Nkurunziza decided to stand for a third term. Hundreds were killed and 400,000 displaced in months of violence. The UN Commission later accused government forces of crimes against humanity, including summary executions, rape and torture. Burundi is one of the world's poorest countries, with a troubled history of ethnic violence. The UN report comes days after a local group investigating past violence opened 8 mass graves in southern Burundi, suspected of containing the remains of victims shot by security forces in 1972.
These people who rest in the mass graves of Gikuzi were murdered out of the contempt and irresponsibility of a political power which deliberately chose not to protect its citizens.
The local investigators want to interview regional leaders about the suspicious deaths. The UN suggests victims from more recently also deserve a similar chance for justice.
For more than a century, wave after wave of immigrants have settled in Chicago's Back of the Yards neighborhood on the city's south side. Some striving, others struggling. The stockyards that once made it a meat-packing epicenter are now vacant. But this remains a working-class neighborhood where people depend on the food assistance, healthcare, and housing programs funded by the federal government. Programs that rely on the census to determine how much money is distributed to communities.
They only asked me about my family, how many people lived in my home. I was never asked about my paper. They didn't ask for my social security number. A lot of people are afraid because they think they'll ask for their papers.
We met Josefina Salazar at a food drive. 150 packaged meals were collected in an hour. Back of the Yards is a neighborhood with a low census response rate. So state and county officials have organized food, mask, toiletry, and book giveaways to lure people out of their homes during the pandemic. Once there, volunteers help ensure they fill out Census 2020.
It serves multiple purposes, right? Because there is a need for food. We want to have the opportunity to interact with some of these residents. And so we've been doing this for the past month. And, I think that it does make a difference.
The 10 minutes it takes to complete the census translates into as much as $2,000 of federal funding per person a year for the next decade.
Even before the pandemic and the shifting deadlines, getting an accurate count for the 2020 census had become a challenge. The Trump administration slashed funding for outreach and staffing. It attempted to put a citizenship question on the form. The Supreme Court squashed that. But the fear in immigrant communities like this one lingers.
To compensate for the lack of federal funding, Illinois, like other states, has poured millions of dollars into getting an accurate census count. Illinois is expecting to lose a seat in the House of Representatives. Seats are based on the census.
Well, for more than 200 years, this was an administrative, a nonpartisan process. But unfortunately, we have a president of the United States who, among his other sins, has tried to discourage participation in the census.
After living in back of the yards for 30 years, some of that time undocumented, Josefina Salazar is now volunteering for the census. She says she realizes being counted means ensuring their neighborhood gets the resources it needs. Natasha Ganane, Al Jazeera, Chicago.
Well, that international news item brings us to the end of Camnet TV Midday News, but before we go, the headlines once again. PF scoops Lukasha and Mwansabombe parliamentary by-elections. Zamto drags 22-year-old man of Lusaka to court for vandalizing cable worth 145 kwacha. In international news, human rights abuses persist in Burundi despite new government. Thank you for joining me. Be sure to make a date with us on our main news at 19:30 hours on Camnet TV. I am Precious Mzea Sakaleji. Good afternoon.